Welcome to Find Your Tribe podcast. We're broadcasting from beautiful Portland, Oregon. My name is Annie Lavender Weller. I'm a member of the Turtle Mountain Band, the Chippewa Indians, and co-founder of the Leadership Lab, which is a career, academic, and transitional coaching nonprofit. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, author, and International Coaching Federation, ACC certified business coach and consultant. Welcome to my podcast, Find Your Tribe. Here is part 2 with my interview with the amazing Shilo George. Please remember to review and subscribe and have a fabulous day. I'm so happy that we sat down because the stuff that you're doing is fucking amazing. Like, I never thought until you was talking, like, when you said the word fat, that, like, freaked me out. I'll just let you know. No, because it's just like, I love my grandmother very much, but she's very vain. She's had plastic surgery. She's told me, like, my husband's going to leave me if I don't lose weight. You know, I've been in abusive relationships where she's told me that I should stay in those abusive relationships because they'll take care of me financially. And I'm like, I can fucking take care of myself. So tell me what you're doing. Tell everybody what you're doing, because it's like, it'll blow your mind. I'll just let you know. It'll blow my mind. It just made me really happy. So,
well, people can't really see me, but I'm a very fat woman. Like, I'm not just a little chubby or whatever. I have been in my life, but I'm quite a large person. So, and I don't have any problem giving out my weight because that's part of, like, destigmatizing for me. So I weigh about like 450, I, you know, have really, you know, I said earlier, kind of experiencing abuse in my life. That is something where, for my experience, was I was sort of kicked out of my body, right? I left my body because it was a scary place, because it was a dirty place, and it didn't really belong to me. And that's what I learned. And people sort of having a lot of ideas about what my body needed to look like throughout my life, and being not shy at all about saying, I think you're fat, or I think you're ugly, or this is wrong, or you need to work out. I used to love doing so many activities like kayaking and hiking, and I remember feeling happy in my body and feeling empowered in it, and having those moments. And as I got older, that became like a foreign feeling to me, and where I just kind of like live in my head most of the time, and sort of disembodied and disassociated. And people who haven't experienced that, it's hard for them to understand it, but people who have, like, totally get what I'm saying. And so I don't, and so I've had a lifetime of not respecting myself and really believing what other people were telling me. You know, like, I remember my mom, bless her heart, but, you know, oh, boys will like you if you lose weight. Well, that's actually not, you know, the case as I got older. But you know, that sort of, and that's kind of stuck with me. It's resonated with me. And the things that people say to you, like the things that people say to me, I guess I should talk about myself, those things become embedded in the narrative of who I am, and they become subconscious. And they start to affect my behavior and how I think about myself in the world. And so I've come from a place of some really intense self-hatred, and doing a lot of things that are not helpful to me, and making my life like really narrow. The fatter I've gotten, or the bigger I've gotten, the smaller my life has gotten in a way. So, like, I don't go out as much maybe, or I don't go to certain events because I don't know about accessibility. I don't know if I'll be able to sit in a chair, or if I'll be able to sit in stadium seating. There's a lot, or I'd love to go to a performance, like theater, but I don't know what the seating's like. And so there's just, or going outside, I've, people are like, well, you just need to go out and walk or whatever. Well, I've walked down the street before and have had people throw fast food at me. Like, it's just, people are just like, you just need to, calories in, calories out and all that crap. And it's not about that. It's not. If it was, then we wouldn't have that very many fat people. So this is obviously the shaming and the abuse and the calling out of fat people and the constant, surveillance of our bodies is not working. It's not helping. It's making us sicker and sadder. And so, I had a lot, and when I was in grad school, I think you learn what you learn in grad school, but I think also you learn about yourself, and whatever you're not really dealing with in life is going to probably come up. And so I ended up having basically kind of a nervous breakdown, I guess, when I was in graduate school. And luckily I'd already kind of been in therapy, and I was diagnosed with complex PTSD. And then I got really, I think it was 3 summers ago, and I was really, really depressed. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I literally can't live anymore. I can't figure out how to make myself feel better. Therapy's not working. Medication doesn't make me feel better. I feel like I have no worth. What is the rest of my life going to be? Like a series of bullshit and abuse from people and abuse that I give to myself. That is not the life that I want to live. And so I was literally laying in my bed, and I came up with a plan, and I was like, I'm totally going to do this. And then in this sort of moment, I heard I have, a connection with my ancestors. And so it's my voice, but it's just a little bit different. And they were like, Mija, like, you can totally do that if you want to. You have choice. But there is other options. And I was like, no, there's not. Like, I am smart, right? At that time, I was like, I am smart. I know I'm smart. I can't think my way out of this. And they were like, well, you're creative. You have, you're an artist. So if you feel like you're in a deep, dark hole, then create a ladder to get out of it, or string up lights, or dig out a tunnel. Like, there's something that you can do. And I was just like, I don't believe you. And so through that conversation, we came up with a collaboration. And our agreement with each other, this is my agreement with them, was if I get to a point where I've hit a wall and I can't figure out a problem in my life and it's really, really bothering me, then I want them to step in and help me, like through a song or a story or conversation, something, so that I can move forward. And so they agreed to that. And I was like, as long as that's the agreement, I'll stay here. And so that's where my Body Sovereignty project was really born. And over the last 3 years, I've worked collaboratively with them about taking back my body as a place of beauty and of healing, where I make the decisions about my body. I decide how I feel about my body, what the stories are about my life. If I have a story running through my head about how I'm not good or how this person doesn't like me or whatever, then I need to interrogate that. Where did that story come from? Whose idea is that? Is it really mine? Is that what my ancestors think about me? That's another way that I kind of think about those things. Nope, that's not. Well, then I want to get rid of that and replace it with something else. And so my Body Sovereignty project is like a healing framework, and it has 3 parts, which is my relationship with food, which has been extremely damaged through years of dieting, forced dieting from the age of 9, and my being embodied. So being in my body through movement. And I don't say exercise because that has kind of a negative connotation for me after many years and in my childhood of like, you have to exercise to not be fat. And then the third part is healing, like from sexual trauma. And so it's not enough to think about it. I actually have to do things. And so that could be making a really awesome meal with a friend and asking them, how do you feel about food? Who taught you how to cook? What do you feel when you're eating or when you're cooking? So just learning someone else's process that's different than mine. And then probably one of the most favorite things I've done is movement and being in my body. And I think it's been the most successful part of this project. And so I've just really was like, I want to move. And it is difficult at my kind of size to do that. And it's also scary because I feel like people are staring at me all the time. So a conventional gym was not an option for me for a long time. And so I thought back on my childhood and what I really, really loved to do. And so I've moved towards, I didn't get to go kayaking, but I did get to go canoeing one time, like last October, through a fat camp for women that was on Orcas Island that was just for fat women.
So
and it's super positive and like, what is your dream? We'll make it happen. We'll do whatever accessibility we need to do. And so out of this Body Sovereignty project, this like strength comes from my belly. And when I either think to myself that I can't do certain things or that this person's thinking this thing about me or whatever, I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this thing. And if somebody has a problem with me, that's about them. It's not about me. And so also like validation, right? I want to have validation in myself, and that if other people like me or think that I'm doing something great and they say something to me, that's sort of icing on the cake. But I don't want everything that I am inside of me to come from other people, because the outside world is chaos, and therefore I am chaos inside. And that's been a really hard process that I'm still working on. And so it's a project because I'll never get done with it. And I think that sometimes when we're looking at healing ourselves and our communities, we think that it's going to be done at a certain time, and I don't think that it ever is done. And I think that especially if we're thinking about healing intergenerational trauma, we're healing our communities, it's multiple generations. And so I don't know if that kind of encompasses sort of the other part of the Sovereignty Project is that I think is really powerful and that people have been, I think, the most interested in is advocating for myself in medical situations with doctors and other prescribers who, if you have a fat body or you know someone who does, you know that medical providers are cruel. And I think we need to just say that a lot of them are abusive. And use shame and neglect. And I think we need to call it what it is and not let they have bad bedside manner or they're having a bad day. I've heard some really awful stories. I've also experienced some really awful things myself. And when I go into medical situations, I'm not going to sit back and let them talk to me like that anymore. I only do what I want to do and what I feel comfortable with, and I will tell them no. And I have no problem going up against them because this is my body and I'm the expert of it. And just like an abuser from my past doesn't have access to my body, neither do they without my consent or anyone else. And I want people to know that that's okay for them to say no to whoever, whether it's a doctor or a partner or some stranger on the street or their parents. Nobody has access to your body if you don't want it.
So going back to your Body Sovereignty Project, is that what you're doing with your business? Is part of, you're going to be teaching people how to... See, I'm going to start asking tough questions.
I know, right? Yes.
Because Shiloh's starting her own business.
Yes.
So...
yeah, it's definitely the inspiration. It is the project, right? So my business is the project and also comes from the project, I guess. And so that's an aspect of teaching people about body sovereignty. And so I've been giving presentations on it for about 2 years, both here, a little bit in San Francisco and quite a bit in Vancouver, BC. And so just talking to people about what it is, my experience, and where I'm kind of at in the project right now. And then I do another presentation on navigating health systems like a boss. So sort of taking that, the experiences I've had as a fat person in navigating health systems. And like, I have basically like, I don't know, it's like a health and wellness plan, I guess. And it details my expectations for care from providers that I work with on a long-term basis, so that they understand what I will and won't talk about and will and won't do, to make sure that we can work together. And then just sort of talking to people like, if you don't want to be weighed, you don't have to do that. If you don't want this, you don't have to do it. And so that's also part of it. The other part, what people have been really interested in and wanting my help with is learning more about weight stigma and fat phobia. What is that? How people can be good allies. I've worked with a foundation that's working in public health, and so they're kind of like, when we're doing grants and things like that, how do we kind of have a lens of to look for sort of weight stigma in the work that we're doing, and I've just starting to get a little bit of interest from the medical community, and I don't know how that's going to go. It'll be interesting because I feel like a lot of providers are very entrenched in this idea that fat people are always unhealthy, and that is absolutely not correct or accurate. And the research actually doesn't even show that, so they're not even looking accurately at their own research. So I think that will be interesting, and then training fat people, or people of size. So yeah.
Going back to the Body Sovereignty Project, I think that's something that's very interesting for me. But how would I start on something like that? I think that's something that could greatly benefit me, because I think we've all sat there, and I've sat there, recently looking up at the ceiling, like, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Nobody loves me, which is a complete fucking lie. I hate my body. Because I was diagnosed also with PTSD. And it's like, oh, light bulb went off. But then what do? You have this light bulb. What are you going to fucking do with the light bulb now that you know and you're not getting those steps? So if I wanted what would be my first step is, I guess, my question of like reclaiming my body sovereignty. And can you explain a little bit what sovereignty means to you?
Yeah. It's a legal term, sovereignty. And the reason why I used it in particular was being Native and just that sort of idea of tribal sovereignty and that we are our own nations, although if you're just speaking legally and historically, the U.S. government doesn't really see our sovereignty, really. But we're always wanting our own sovereignty. Like, we have control over our land and our people and our culture and our language. We are different and separate from other nations, including we're different from the U.S., we're different from Canada, we're different from Mexico, Europe, European countries. So just really, it's kind of a political and a legal status. And so I was thinking of...
Because I think it's brilliant.
And I was thinking of that I want a very clear and delineated idea that my body is sovereign, that it's different from other people's bodies, and that I don't want another person. I don't care who they are. So I guess in terms of my body being a sovereign place, I don't want a medical provider who could almost kind of be like the U.S. government in a way. If you looked at Native nations and the U.S. government, like that sort of relationship, I can have a collaboration with them, but they don't get to rule over my body. They don't get to tell me what it does or doesn't do or whatever, what they want to do. Same thing with people who could be friends or people who are strangers. This is mine and you can have an opinion about it or whatever, but you don't get to control it. Yeah. Same thing with abusers and predators. You don't get to control it.
How do you start the project though? How do you start? I mean, do you collage? I mean, I've had many therapists throughout my life.
Yes.
So, they've never given me this is what you need to do, in a box. Right. Does that make sense? I'm a project person. So it's you give me steps and I'll do these steps and I know I'm going to feel better by the time I'm going to hate it. But by the time I'm done, I'll at least have learned something. Right. I guess that's just my educational.
Where I think people should start, which obviously, individual people should do what works for them. But where I started was, what are the things I think about myself? What are the stories and narratives that I think about myself? So, some of those narratives, which I'm still battling and I probably will be battling forever, is that no one's going to love me unless I'm thinner, unless I lose weight. Right. So that's a story for me. And so I'm constantly battling that story. And but where does that story come from? So I might think, okay, well, I can remember that time my mom said that thing to me, which I don't want to, throw my mom under the bus. But, that's an example. Or, all of the news media, also has that narrative. So how do I actually feel about myself? One thing that I've done a little bit of that I found really empowering around stories is, you can't really see it, but if I put my arm up around my elbow, the inside of my elbow, I have this fat rolls. and I had a photo with a friend, and I saw that, and I was so disgusted. This was probably 2 years ago, and I'd been working on this project, and my initial reaction was I don't want to see these fat rolls. It ruined the picture. And then I was maybe this is a moment where I can reframe that and rethink of it. And so I took some photos of the fat rolls, and I did some black and whites and just of the fat rolls, and sort of took them out of context. And I was like, you know what? Those look really buttery and juicy and delicious. And I thought of cinnamon rolls. And so now I call this part of my body my cinnamon rolls, because they're juicy and buttery and yummy. And I feel such a different feeling about them. And so I feel much more comfortable wearing shirts or blouses that are sleeveless. And when I talk and give presentations and I know I'm I'm going to tell that story, I make sure that people can see my cinnamon roll so I can put my arm up. And I show people that, and I say it like in a really yummy way. And you can see people like laugh and giggle and also kind of be a little bit uncomfortable, maybe thinking about themselves and their own bodies. And so I have a couple of different places on my body that I've made up different stories about it, or made a word about it or a phrase. And that's taking back my body. I also have tattoos only on my left arm so far, but there's going to be on my right arm too. And that's another place for me to take back control of what my body looks like, and to remind myself of my project. So my left arm, all of the symbols on it are about body sovereignty. So I think people should start with what they believe about themselves, what is from other people that they don't want to keep, and what do they want to create for themselves. And, there's that empowerment of, this is the story that I want to have about myself. And you can totally do whatever you want. You are totally in charge of that process. And whatever feels good to your heart, whatever makes you feel giddy and happy. And you could use art for that. You could make music. You could have a conversation with someone. How do you express yourself? So do it that way. Some people artists, some people do other things. Some people write, some people move, dance, whatever you want to do. Like, do a ton of different things. So does that make sense?
It does. It does. I was just like waiting for process 1, take out the pens. Process 2, take out the newspaper clippings.
Well, and I
guess I've gone to a lot of psychologists.
Well, I mean, and some people that feels safer, right? When you're embarking on something that's really scary, sometimes having that like A, B, C, D, E is really helpful. So that's might be something I need to think about, because I tend to be a very like artist, like intuitive, and not everybody is like that. So that's probably something that I need to think of. And also when people are in trauma and they're traumatized and maybe even activated, and by activated I mean triggered, where something's happened, like maybe somebody said something to you, or you're in an experience where your heart is thumping and your blood pressure's up and you're kind of freaking out a little bit. And that can happen in these experiences where people are looking at themselves and looking at their lives and taking stock. So, maybe having an ABCD process for those cases might be helpful to people.
Yeah. There was this really good documentary I watched, and is about being sex positive and people that are, in the outskirts of, they might be different, have like MS or something along that line, and never have had sex or whatever. And like they stand in the mirror naked with somebody else, and that other person's naked too. And it could be like a sex therapist, I think. I can't remember. And they talk about what they like and don't like. And they're completely, and I was just like, oh my God. But you know what? Annie did that the other day. Where I wasn't with somebody, but I was by myself. I just got a shower. And I was like, oh, well, you have 40-year-old boobs now. And they're beautiful. But yeah, they're starting to sag a little bit. And so I just kind of like went down the line and described myself. And I was just like, wow. There's a lot of more positive things I said about my body than negative things. And so I walked out of the bathroom going, okay, had a little happiness, a little happy in my step, thinking like, but I still couldn't wear a bikini, or I still have, issues wearing swimsuits and stuff like that. But I'll, one day.
It's a
right?
process.
One day.
So one of the things that I'm like talking about with thinking about your stories and creating a new narrative is brain. You're rewiring your brain, right? We're really lucky that our brains are pretty malleable. Most brains are. And so when we rewire our brain, if you want to think about it's snowing outside and there's a hill and you want to go sledding, and you walk up to this like hill or whatever, and there's already a snow, like a sledding route, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Like there's already like
the ruts.
There's already there's already a rut that's been made for you. And somebody came along earlier and did it, and it's iced overnight. And so you're at the top and you slide down it, and it is just fast, and you get to the bottom, and so it's great. And then you're like, well, I kind of want to do a different rut, right? But to start a new one, you have to start at the top, and you have to just kind of of push the snow and go down and down. And sometimes you might go down and you slip into that old rut, right? And it's super fast. And so it's kind of like, that's kind of like rewiring your brain. You're making a new rut, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of hard work. And you may want to give up or whatever, and you may find yourself in an old pattern. You may find yourself in an old frame of mind and thought, and you just kind of stop yourself, don't have a lot of judgment about it, and be like, and then you go back to that new one and be like, actually, this is what I want to think about myself. And that's a little bit about that idea, too, fake it till you make it kind of stuff. You're rewiring your brain, and it takes some time. And then all of a sudden one day you'll be like, I haven't thought that thing about myself in a long time. And that's really awesome.
So what are the next steps for you in this big, beautiful project of yours? What's your next steps? Business.
Are we talking specifically about my business,
No,
or just in general?
Just in general.
Okay.
We can talk about it just in general. I know your business is coming up.
Yeah.
So,
what am I doing right now?
I know you're doing a lot.
So that's why I'm like, I joined a gym. Actual gym. And it's been interesting and kind of stressful to be there. And it's not body positive or fat positive. It's not really even accessible. I feel really uncomfortable being there. Probably the people who see me there probably think I'm really fucking mean, because really I glare at people the whole time, because I'm just like, I'm ready for you to say something to me or look at me. And
you put on your armor, right?
I do. My armor is full on, and I'm not there to make friends, and I'm honestly not there to be really nice either. I mean, I'm not going to be downright mean to people, but I was thinking of asking my friend Asa to screen print me a t-shirt that says "Not Your Inspiration," just because I want it to be really clear to people. I feel like people are staring at me. I know that I'm a lot of people's, my body is like.
Do you have a gym buddy?
I do. It hasn't. I mean, I just started, but we haven't really been able to.
That would be helpful.
To hang out. If anybody wants to work out with me at the LA Fitness in the Pearl District and make it a little happier experience.
Maybe I'll join you.
Right? I actually got to play racquetball last week. I went in really early, and I haven't played racquetball. I loved racquetball growing up, and my mom worked at a racquetball club, and I played a lot of tournaments, and I haven't played since probably high school.
I play racquetball really horribly.
Really? Can we play racquetball horribly together?
Yeah, definitely. I think I still have my racket and my balls and my goggles. I have hot pink goggles because I had a boyfriend that used to like to play, and it was fun.
I think it's super fun. It's great for.
I'm always hitting myself with the racket, or I walk out with bruises at all times. But yeah, I'm horrible.
I could only play for 15 minutes, and then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to fall over. But
it's hard.
It is
You're
hard.
moving.
Right. And I don't think I was actually moving that fast, but I was moving fast for me. But I was really interested because I still have muscle memory from that. I can still bounce the ball up, if my racket's up, and bounce it up towards the ceiling really well. And so I'm interested in doing that more and being able to do it longer, and getting into it, and then swimming. And then there's a jacuzzi.
I'm horrible at swimming because my mom, I have a phobia of putting my head underwater.
Okay.
So my mom wasn't evil, horrible, I think people probably think she is. She was a good person, but at the same time she had her issues, but she was pregnant with my brother, and I wanted to go swimming, and I didn't know how to swim, and so she took me to the deep end, and she kept on putting my head underwater, thinking that will teach me how to swim. And
that is absolutely horrendous, and I'm so sorry that happened.
But I love being in the water. I'm definitely a water baby. In fact, I had a voodoo priestess tell me that my goddess is Yamamia, which is the goddess of water.
Yep.
And so, which is really interesting because I probably almost drowned.
Maybe that's why you didn't.
Pool, maybe that's why I did it. Somebody was looking out for me. She had my back. So I do have a phobia about putting my head underwater, but I'm getting better where I can put my head underwater and I can push off and I can swim. But I'm a horrible swimmer. I want to learn how to swim, though. Maybe you can teach me how to swim.
Totally. And, in the pool, I think they have those, what are they called?
I do have one of those paddle thingies.
What is it? You put it out in front of you.
And I have swim fins that make me fast.
So, you can use those things so you won't even have to put your head underwater.
Yeah. And also, there's a local place that you can buy swimsuits for plus-size women. Poplina, I believe it's called. Here they have 2 locations. I think they're owned by Just Like a Woman, who also has bras and underwear for women of all shapes and sizes. And they do a lot of work with people that have had mastectomies and so forth. So they're amazing. Here in Portland, we're giving them a shout out.
Can I give a couple shout outs?
Sure.
About my So I want to say that when you're trying to start a small business and you don't know what the fuck you're doing, there has been a massive amount of support for me and for others, and you have been super supportive as well. You're like the first person I reached out to talk to. But I also, I joke around and call her my case manager because I do case management all the time and have for years. And so my friend Amber, who's at the ONAC, the Oregon Native American Chamber, she's been helping me, and she got me hooked up with Thai XL, and they gave me a scholarship to take entrepreneurial boot camp, which I'm doing right now, which has been fascinating. And the thing I've learned the most is I don't know shit about business. I don't know anything.
Well, that's one of the things that people come to me as a business coach and consultant. And that's why I have to say I'm a consultant, because I can't sit there and watch my clients fail, which really bothers me. And that's why I put the consultant in there. And a lot of people, like I was talking, I use the analogy of a restaurant. Like the front of your house can look fucking amazing. Your menu's mouth-watering. You have your signature speech down, all that. But if your kitchen, which you do your forecasting operations, you don't know the cost of food, you don't know, how to delegate, you don't know how to do books, you don't know anything about taxes, that's all fucked up. No bueno. You're not going to be in business for very long. And if you are, you're not going to scale your business. And also, you're going to just hate life. Because I've made that mistake. And so I'm glad that I'm hoping they are teaching the back end of business at your entrepreneur boot camp.
Well, I mean, we're focusing, totally. And we're also just focusing on what you need to know to get started. Like, make sure you don't forget about your taxes. Make sure you don't forget, you need to know why you're in business. You need to know who your competitors are and what the market looks like. And all of that is really kind of new to me. But it's been really amazing. We've had other entrepreneurs come in and talk to us about their experiences, and then they will get you any support that you need. And then NAIA also has a micro enterprise class that I'm also just started last week, and it's called Indianpreneurship. And we have a really cool book that's culturally responsive.
Oregon,
Have you seen that?
I was Indian. I was one of their Indianpreneurs. In fact, I was one of Willamette Week's best people of Portland. But what is it? The best of Portland? Indianpreneur.
That's awesome.
I can't remember what year it was. It was. Woo. I remember I was with my ex-husband still. So
it was a little while ago.
It was a little while ago. But I was one of the best of Portland's Indianpreneurs, awesome. Which I think is really funny.
I love that word so much.
And I'm a little embarrassed by the article because she says, I tell her that I'm a feather, not a dot. And I'm like, oh, God. Annie, that sounds so racist.
It's not okay.
God. But it was a long time ago.
You've
and now
progressed,
I've progressed and super embarrassing. Yeah. But it's in black and white writing forever on the internet. Anyways, I love all my Indian people from India. And I love all my Native American people that are here. So. Yeah, I don't know why. I wish I was... Yeah, turn back time. If I could find... I was just listening to... I don't know. Anyways, sorry. Digressing.
Your share song.
Yes. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you once your business gets started and you're going to be teaching, I'm guessing, body sovereignty. Well, I shouldn't say guessing. You're going to be teaching body sovereignty and teaching health professionals and also other people how to deal with health professionals along with other different speaking engagements. I know that I already have somebody I hooked you up with, Hannah, that wants you to come and speak.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, totally.
So I have already, can I say the word pimping you out? Not pimping you out. That's bad. Okay, we need to cut
Networking.
that one. Networking her out.
we gotta come up with another word for that.
Another word. I have been telling everybody and anybody about you, and
I have business cards now.
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
So, and I think, I have them wait, no, they're in my car. Anyways, I can get them to you.
That's okay.
I've never had them before. Well, besides like other jobs I've had.
Oh, no, trust me, you'll keep them at all times, and you would be really surprised at the times you'll be at like 4 o'clock in the morning, a little tipsy, at the hot cake house, and somebody will start talking to you, and they are like the CEO of this huge company, and they want you to talk to them later, and you're like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm a little drunky. I just want my pancakes. But here's my business card. You'd be really surprised, like, people that want you. But, I mean, I'm really, how do they get a hold of you, though? How do people get a hold of you?
So, I don't have a website yet. That's in the works.
No, that's okay. Email address?
Yes. SHILOMGEORGE.
Shilo M. George?
Yes. At gmail.com.
At gmail.com. And you'll have your website up when?
The next couple of months.
I
need to like work some stuff out and write some things out. There's a lot of different things I can do. The other thing I've been talking to a few people about is talking to businesses about accessibility and about doing like accessibility assessments and helping people with sort of tips on how to make their businesses accessible to like people of size, people who have different disabilities and things like that. And then trauma-informed practice. I just got trained to be able to give that workshop. And that could be any kind of business. It doesn't necessarily have to be people who are providing services like social work services. It could be businesses. It could be restaurants. How do you kind of make your the business or services that you're providing for your customers and your employees trauma-informed? Because there are a lot of people who are traumatized, and some people may not know that, but there are a lot of us walking around. And so it's just sort of this assumption that everyone's traumatized, and how do we make the world a softer, gentler place so that we don't getting triggered all the time. Yeah. And so I'm really interested in training people on that and having conversations. And really, if somebody, is really interested in something I've said here, they want me to speak, they just want to sort of talk to me about how they could integrate some of that into whatever they're doing, they can totally get a hold of me. Because I'm still kind of, I've had many years, like 20 years of doing social work and helping people and building a really strong anti-oppressive social justice lens. And so I'm really just this weekend, I'm actually just going to put everything into a big piece of paper on my wall and start figuring out stuff. But I think I have to be really careful too about not doing too much at the beginning. But most of the people who are asking for services and me to come and speak, it has to do with fatness. It has to do with body sovereignty, with taking back who you are. And yes, and that's my passion in life. That's what I do to keep myself healthy and sane. And I mean that in the literal term in this world.
If you could give, people out there listening, like one little tidbit, what would you say?
Tidbit about their bodies and
about
their
anything,
lives.
About lives, bodies, anything.
My tidbit would be, we live in a culture that really portrays a lot of negativeness and a lot of that we're all kind of deficits, and that we need to constantly be doing things to fill ourselves up, and that we're empty. And that's a lot about trying to make some money. And I think that we need to start seeing ourselves in our brilliance and our strength, and seeing that in each other and telling each other, I think you're brilliant, I think you're amazing, because there's way more amazingness happening than negativeness, but that's just so amplified. And I think seeing ourselves as strengths and positive is super important.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
Fucking amazing.
So are you.
I try.
I like this networking thing that people have been so generous. It's been absolutely amazing. I never thought that I would be able to start a business, and here I am doing this. And I really just whatever your dream is, try and go for it. I mean, there's never nobody's going to tell you what is it? No guarantees.
Yep.
But you should try it anyway.
And thank you for joining us again for another episode of Find Your Tribe. I'm Annie, your host, and I'll talk to you on the flip side. Find Your Tribe podcast is a conversation with guests addressing all aspects of what makes our businesses and personal lives unique. We will balance traditions with new methods, respecting the past while acknowledging the need to embrace new methods and technologies. Finding Your Tribe podcast uncovers the personalities behind the businesses, the leaders who paved the way, and the essential heart of what makes our tribes run. Please visit me at annieweller.com for more information.